They're steel. They're fully customizable. They're handmade in the USA. They're Scalar Fab. Rich here from the RCNetwork.com, and today we're going to be taking a look at some cool bumper options for your Traxxas TRX-4 Sport and other TRX-4 vehicles. So you just got your brand new TRX-4 Sport either built or you got it home out of the box, and you notice that you have this big shovel style bumper on the front of it. I can't get over how large this is and hollow, and it's just going to get in the way if you really start to do any type of trailing and crawling with this TRX-4. Same goes for the rear bumper. This thing actually sticks out past the TRX-4 Sport camper style body about a good, I don't know, ½ inch from the actual body, and probably about even with the flares. So today in this video, we're going to be ditching those things and picking up some cool options for steel bumpers for your TRX-4 Sport. So I went over to my friends over at Scalar Fab, and I was able to pick up a couple of their newly released bumpers for the TRX-4 Sport. Now, these items were pretty much designed for the Sport Edition. However, they may fit on different versions of the TRX-4, and I'll definitely link their website down below in the video description so you can kind of check it out for yourself. Starting off with the front bumper, I picked up their comp style bull bar front bumper for the TRX-4. Now this thing mounts straight to the chassis rails, and it's pretty cool. It's very small. This thing is about maybe 3 inches wide in total, but it just have this cool kind of skid right here that's all kind of part of the structure of the bumper. So you have the nice bull bar up here, and then you do have a flat deck that you could probably mount a winch if you wanted to, although you wouldn't have a fair lead, but it's a great place to mount like a 2-inch light bar. That'll be a great addition for my TRX-4 Sport. Now on the sides, you have the adjustability here to move the bumper either in or out of the body, and this thing will fit nicely on that Sport camper shell. For the rear, I went with their Pre-Runner series bumper for the rear, and this thing is pretty nice because it'll really hug the body and just get out of your way. It'll have the added strength of the steel construction, but in the end, we don't want bumpers getting in the way on our RC vehicles. This one just needs to stay out of the way, give us a little bit of protection if we happen to run into something, but other than that, this thing will have the same mounting feature as the front, going onto the outer part of the chassis rails, and it's fully adjustable depending on which body you're running. So this will be a nice little addition. I like the added little step-up bar right here that comes stock on this version of this. And as with any of Scalar Fab's bumpers, you can kind of customize it as you have it in your cart. You can decide what finish you want, from raw to the straight Rust-Oleum right here, or the bed liner, but you can also add shackles and some other bits and pieces. But definitely check out the video description. I'll have it all down below so you can check it out for yourself. Now, I did pick up the side rockers for the TRX-4 Sport, but remember, mine is actually the kit chassis version, or the chassis kit version, so these don't bolt directly on without having to remove a couple of items. Now, the Sport doesn't come with wheel wells and other things on the inside of the chassis, so these were a little bit hard to mount on. I did mount one on, and I'll show you guys a little bit later in this video. Without further ado, let's go ahead and mount up these bumpers. Now, I've already removed the set pins that are on either side here, and just keep in mind, I've actually flipped my bumper mounts. This is actually the front one right here. The rear one's up front, and I flipped them upside down, so my pins are actually down from the bottom, but I've already removed those, and it simply just pulls straight out of the bumper mount, and we can go ahead and start mounting up the new Scalar Fab Pre-Runner style rear bumper. All you have here is 2 screws on either side. Grab your 2mm and get turning. Now that we have all 4 screws out, we can go ahead and start test fitting this thing in. And it's going to have a nice tight fit. Awesome. And just adding the screws back in, and we're all set. And now for the front bumper. Went ahead and removed the 2 set pins, and we can just pull this thing out. discard that thing, recycle it, whatever you need to do. And this thing can go ahead and mount on the front bumper or the chassis. So I'm going to go ahead and remove those 4 screws once again, 2 on either side of those chassis rails. Now that we have all the screws out, we can go ahead and test fit this in either side of the chassis rail. Perfect. I'm going to go ahead and add the 4 screws back in, test fit the body, and make sure I have it all adjusted perfectly. All right, front is all on. I went ahead and test fitted the body to make sure I had the right amount of position of the bumper, both either into the chassis or extended from the chassis. Same for the rear as well. So I think I have a pretty good fitment right now. And with that, this thing is solid. I mean, this thing isn't moving just with those 4 screws through the chassis into that plastic little bumper mount here on the front. As for the side rocker panels that I mentioned earlier, this is the one that I actually mounted up. Now, with the TRX-4 chassis kit, you do have to sandwich this particular rocker in between this plate and the chassis, and not all the screws are going to be covered, so it's going to be a little bit awkward and uneven. I went ahead and kind of mocked it up right now just to see if you could do it. You can do it. It's just a little bit awkward getting the screw into there in between this kind of narrow little hole right here. It was kind of a pain to get that in. So I think ideally you wouldn't have these side panels on. You would just use this as your actual side panel, and I believe the Sport doesn't come with the actual inner wheel wells, so none of that would be an issue on the actual Sport. And these are marketed directly for the Sport version of the TRX-4. As for these rockers or rock sliders, ScalarFab does offer some options on these, which I did opt for them, which is this additional bar up here that kind of protects up into the body. Typically, we just have this one piece right here. And then also, I opted for the kind of skid plates on here on the bottom. I call them boat sides. I had these on my Axial Bomber, and these things were awesome. So definitely recommend getting these put onto your rocker panels. This adds for a little bit extra security when you're sliding over the rocks. All right, so let's go ahead and test fit this body in and see how these new ScalarFab bumpers did. I can't wait to kind of see how this looks on camera, although I've already took a little sneak peek at it when the camera was not rolling. So there we have it. This thing looks pretty legit. I definitely like the front bumper. This is what definitely sold me on these bumpers, was this front one being so small. As I move the truck around really quick, you can kind of see on the body right here that the pre-cut body has this little kind of indentation right here on the front valence to allow for that bumper. It was almost like this body was made for that particular bumper. So I definitely like this. Now I have this pushed all the way in, almost as far as I can. You can probably go a little bit more, but you can bring this out a little bit to mount that extra light bar on there if you choose to do so. Like a 2-inch light bar would probably fit perfectly on that bumper. Right there you can see the side profile. I mean, this thing is pretty legit. I mean, there's some pretty steep angles that you can now approach and not get your bumper kind of hung up on things. You can just go out and have fun. Taking a look at the rear Pre-Runner series bumper, this thing was once again kind of made for this camper body. It'll also work for the pickup body of the TRX-4 Sport. And you can kind of see there's about a good 1-inch kind of overhang right here going in almost to the wheel well, so, or the fender flare. So a very nice added touch, and this thing absolutely fits perfect. There's maybe 1/8 of an inch kind of space between the actual bumper and the actual body. So I do like this little step up right here. Gets you that added protection and kind of that rear kind of angle that is going to be pretty steep there that you can climb and not be hitting anything on the rocks. And then once again, if we lift up this actual body, you can kind of see that the laser cut body from Traxxas almost was made for this particular bumper. So fits in there perfectly. You can get out there, have some fun, and not let your bumpers get in the way of all the fun you need to have. Now, like I said earlier, I really like the fact that these are handmade in the USA by the ScalarFab family. I love that they're made of steel, so they'll definitely take some abuse. They're fully customizable, so you can choose all different sorts of finishes, including the flat black right here that I got. Also like a Rust-Oleum bed liner that you can put on it as well. It gives it a little bit more texture, maybe some more longevity. And you can also get these in raw, so an unfinished state, so you can paint them up yourself. Well guys, there's a quick look at the new bumpers from Scalar Fab for the Traxxas TRX-4 Sport. Some of these may be able to opt on to other TRX-4 versions, but you can definitely check out the video description. I'll have links to each one of these items down there so you can check it out for yourself. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts on these bumpers or my TRX-4 or just the RC network in general. Love to hear comments, questions, and I typically respond to every single one of them. Well guys, that is it for now. Comments, questions down below, and as always, thumbs up and subscribe. Over and out.